Good. So welcome all to New Perspectives, an integral yoga platform that's based on the teachings of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. And as you know, New Perspectives is hosted by Aro University and Sri Aurobindo Integral Life Center in Surat, India, and Sri Aurobindo Integral Life Center located here in Fountain Inn, South Carolina. And all three organizations are founded by H.P. Rama. So I'm Rade. I'm the executive director of the center here in Fountain Inn, and I'm joined by my colleague, Dr. Vladimir Yatsenko, director of research. We are also joined by our esteemed speaker for today, Dr. Sumitra Basu. Welcome, Dr. Basu. So before beginning our webinar, let's just observe a few moments of silence, please. So today, Dr. Basu addresses the very important topic of karma and rebirth, a subject that is near and dear to him. And contrary to conventional views on karma and its relationship to rebirth, Sri Aurobindo states in Life Divine, it is not conceivable that the spirit within is a slave in this life of its past actions. The truth must be less rigid and more plastic. If a certain amount of results of past karma is formulated in the present life, it must be with the consent of the psychic being which presides over the new formation of its earth experience, in a sense, not merely to an outward compulsory process of karma, but to a secret will and guidance. That secret will is not mechanical, but spiritual. The guidance comes from an intelligence which may use mechanical processes, but is not their subject. Self-expression and experience are what the soul seeks by its birth into the body. Whatever is necessary for the self-expression and experience of this life, that is what will be formulated. For the principle is not working out of a mechanism of law, but the development of the nature through cosmic experience, so that eventually it may grow out of ignorance. So as the topic today of karma and rebirth is indeed a very deep and rich one, we have extended the webinar time to 90 minutes, which will include plenty of time for Q&A. So as we go along, any questions that you have for Dr. Basu, we'd appreciate if you would post in the Q&A box rather than the chat box. And again, they will be addressed towards the end of this webinar. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to you, Vladimir.
Thank you, Radha. Let me briefly introduce Dr. Sumitra Basu, who is a psychiatrist working with consciousness paradigms. He conducts workshops on personal growth and is a founder editor of Namaha, the Journal of Integral Health. He has authored the book Integral Health and is deeply interested in the interplay of Aurobindonian metaphysics and mental health. He has coined the other day the word metaphysical psychology, in which philosophy and psychology become one knowledge system, as it was in the times of the Veda. And it is very dear to me to think in those terms, that the philosophy and psychology can come back together. He has developed a module of consciousness-based psychology, and along with Michael Majowicz, has authored a book on consciousness-based psychology, which looks at psychopathology and counseling from an entirely new perspective that arises from the experiential teachings of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. He has made several presentations already at our forums on New Perspectives, where he spoke on the descent into and ascent from the subconscious and inconscient realms of consciousness, involution and evolution, as well as on the higher realms of consciousness and the chakras in the light of Sri Aurobindo's integral yoga, and made a presentation on money, power and sex. He can be accessed at consciousness-based-counseling.com. So without further ado, I would like to request Sumitra to present this profound topic on karma and rebirth in the light of Sri Aurobindo to our audience. Please, Sumitra.
Thank you, Vladimir and Radhe, for giving me this wonderful opportunity to be with you all, and for such a very important topic. For is really very important, rebirth and karma. Once I had read in the Tibetan Book of Dead that this life has no utility, no value, if we do not prepare for the next life. So one of the most important motivators for this life is to have a preparation for the next life. So in keeping that in view, we'll come to Sri Aurobindo's perspective of the karma and rebirth, which is very new, very beautiful, and forward-looking, and it breaks many barriers. It also breaks many conventional ways of our thinking. As he said that he views karma in a very different way. He had said the word that karma, the usual way is in which karma is viewed, that as he used this word, scannings for the bad and lollipops for the good. So for that, for him, it had no value. And the plain karma theory, where if something here, you relate to something which had happened in some past life. He had said this phrase, too symmetrical to be true. Too symmetrical to be true. So you see, keeping this in mind, we will go to our PowerPoint presentation and be with me and let us see. Just a point. So when we come to karma, one might not use the term karma, but the law of karma exists in some form or other in different cultures. And we know that there is an iota of truth from a very important discovery that we have made nowadays in the psychology of consciousness, where you know that for the past few decades, we have been working on near-death experiences, where people who were nearly dying or had technically died for a few seconds, but because of very good measures in our very ultra-modern intensive care units, they were brought back to life. So all these people all over the world, when they're asked to narrate if they had any experience, they are talking of the same thing, which is very surprising. Why surprising? Why surprising? Because sleep is an active physiological state. Sleep is not an absence of consciousness. You see, when one sleeps, one is actually conscious because the ascending reticular activating system, which modulates our alertness, is active in sleep. But when you go into coma, that system doesn't work. So a person who has gone into coma, or has technically not in life for a few seconds, when he comes back, where the ascending reticular activating system is not active, he is talking about different things. And you can't say that it is an hallucination because you can't explain it. in the way we explain it from the point of physiology, because physiology is not working. Where when your ascending reticular activating system is dampened. And there, many people all over the world, they are saying that we were going through a tunnel, and then we were shown us like a cinema film. We were being shown what are the good things or the bad things we did in our life, as if a judgment was being taking place. Or I was shown that uh, even if you have even if you have passed away, all the things that you have done in life, they are recorded somewhere. And you see these people all over the world, they have this kind of near-death experiences, and when they come back to their senses, they are describing it, and it is something which is very commonly researched nowadays. Of course, near-death experiences were always there, but that used to happen to ordinary people also. You know that people who are very old, before they pass away, they start talking about their childhood and other things. And then there are certain kinds of near-death experiences which could be experientially perceived in different ways by rishis and yogis. But today, that is, we are not rishis and yogis. We have to go into coma, into an ICU to have these experiences. That's the fallacy. And but you see that some kind of that accountability of what you have done in life is already recorded there. In consciousness, it is recorded. Otherwise, in near-death experience, this kind of thing would not have happened. That's why the law of karma exists in some form or other in different cultures, because in all cultures, people who have gone deep have got some experience of this kind or the other. But Shiva does not believe in the oversimplified notion of karma, which uh, which makes big judgments, exemplary punishments for bad and rewards for good actions in present or past lives. The people come and tell, "Oh, I have got a mental retarded child, a child with a Down syndrome, and what bad karma I did in this life or some past life that I have this child like this, a Mongol child." And I tell them it's not related to karma. Every one out of 900 births in the world, it happens with the Down syndrome. So it's very normally statistically relevant and recurring data is there. Whether you wanted it or not, you just fell into that category. It's nothing related to your karma. So everything you can't relate to karma like that. So, but this is what is important. That he explains that it is the soul that willfully chooses a great variety of experiences. It is spiraling growth through many lives. It is a soul which is spiraling through many lives, growing through many lives, and it wants experiences. It wants to enrich itself by experiences, and it is in that context you have to view karma. And then this is a very important statement he made in his commentary in the Ishopanishad, that the chain of karma only binds the movement of nature and not the soul. So the chain of karma is only binding the movement of nature and not the soul. It's a very important sentence in the Isha Upanishad commentary. I think Vladimir afterwards will be able to explain a bit more on this sentence why he has said this. So, and to coming to the mother, his mother explained that to a question whether the divine punished injustice, mother explained that the divine did not see things in the way the human beings did, and was perfectly non-judgmental, and therefore didn't have the motivation to punish or reward. Now I'll tell you a very anecdote which happened, which I had to face. One day, one evening, a young man who was a Muslim, and he came from my ancestral village, which is quite far from about 60, 70 kilometers from my clinic. He came running one day in the evening, and he came and told me, "Sir, I came to you because I married a very nice girl, a very pious girl, a very religious girl, and I have no option because I have to commit suicide." I said, "Why?" "But she's so religious, she's so pious, and I have told all the bad things that I've done in my life to her. So how many times I cheated customers because he was a grocer? How many times I didn't buy the tickets in the train or in the bus? I traveled ticketless. How many times I duped many girls?" And for each kind of what you call bad thing that he did, according to him, his wife opened the book of Hadith judgment like that, which is there in there. Islamic literature. And for each of these acts, she told this is the quantum of punishment you will have. For that this punishment, for the offense number 1, you have to be in hell for 6 years. For the other punishment, you will be roasted in hell for such a long period, say 7 months. For that, again, that another quota of punishment is there. So he said the quota of punishment is so much, is impossible. I should have married a very ordinary girl instead of a religious and pious girl. So I have no option. I have to commit suicide. Then I told him about, though he was Muslim, but he belongs to my village, and he would listen to whatever I say. So I told him about Lord Balaji in Tirupati, and who is the Narayana, who is the Lord in Tirupati, who is worshipped. The Lord is worshipped as in Tirupati as Venkateshwara Balaji, and the Balaji's eyes are blindfolded. The Balaji's eyes, if you look at the if you go to the internet and if you look for the picture for Balaji, you will find that Balaji's eyes are blindfolded. There are kerchiefs in front of the eye, or in front of both the eyes. There are kerchiefs. And mother said, I don't know if the people in Tirupati, they can tell the importance of that symbol, but mother said that it is extremely psychologically relevant. It means that the divine is completely non-judgmental. The divine is not saying what you have done in the past. It is not bothered what you are going to do in the future. The divine is not bothered about your sins. And equally, the divine is not bothered about your virtues. Absolutely non-judgmental. At that moment when you are standing in front, if you are sincere, your aspirations will be answered. So that moment is important. So that means at every moment we are given a choice. We can be this side or we can be that side. Throughout life, every moment we are given a choice. At every moment we can be on this side or we can be on the other side. Because to the divine, all these things have no value. In the way we give values to them. It is so moving. I see that young man, he was so impressed, and afterwards I made it I used this in counseling, especially when I had to train young counseling students who would be counseling HIV patients. So that to counsel HIV patients, you have to be absolutely non-judgmental. If you be judgmental, you will do a great disservice to the hapless victims who have become, many of whom actually become victims. They're not in what you call, they're born criminals and all. They became, by chance, they got affected. Even if it was a choice, it was some foolish act in their life for which one cannot be castigated like that. One can be judged. One cannot be judged by counselors. And to concretize that non-judgmental attitude, I always tell them this story or this incident of Lord Balaji. So to see that how the divine is completely non-judgmental. And all actions, this is mother words, these are mother words, that all actions carry in themselves their fruits and their consequences. And according to the nature, the action will bring you closer to the divine or it will take you further away from the divine. That alone is significant. You see, mother says that alone is significant. So that every moment we are given a choice. And in that choice, we can be closer to the truth and can be away from the truth. So it means, it boils down to one thing, that every moment we must try to live consciously. We must try to live consciously. Very, very important. We try to live consciously. You see, Lord Buddha said, live each moment. Live each moment. Now, you see, what does he mean by that? In ordinary life, every moment is either loaded with all the broodings of the past or the burden of the past, or anticipations of the future, anticipating the future and brooding the past. From where they are coming from? They're coming from our unconscious, our unconscious, our inconscious, our subconscious, that is giving rise to our past experiences, and also from there our fears for the future. You see, it's not the future, but the fears for the future which are plaguing us. So we want to live one moment, one free moment, one fluid moment, which is free from the moodings of the unconscious, which is free from the subconscious. One free, absolutely free moment. We don't live such moments, but we have to aspire for that. Even when you sit in meditation every day, once in 24 hours, we can aspire that at least once we can have one moment like that. One moment which is totally free. One moment which is totally fluid, totally flexible, and not connected with the past or the future. And you see, it is important because if you want to work through karma, on karma, then you have to have this kind of experience. Now, this is a very interesting thing, I know, but some of you are very greatly interested in past life therapies, I know, but you have to take it, and even if you're doing it, you have to modify your stance in accordance to the truths that were unfolded by Sri Aurobindo, and you then see that the things become different. You see, as Sri Aurobindo did not recommend an expenditure of time and energy to resolve karmic conflicts of the past lives, even if they had carryover effects, as each new manifestation actually projects a new personality in accordance with the time spirit. In accordance with the time spirit, that is the time spirit. You see, each time a soul projects a new personality. This new personality has to be, actually, it has to be in consonance with the time spirit. So, for example, a psychiatrist today like me, the way I am working, the way I am dealing with clients, 200 years ago, a psychiatrist would have to be dealt in a different way, with a different kind of theory, with different kind of clients. Already in my very short life, so many things have changed. The type of patients, for example, I was dealing with when I passed out of my medical school, then I used to see a lot of hysterical cases, especially in India, when among the first generation learners, means that parents were not educated. They were uneducated farmers or vendors or something like that, and they had great expectation that the children are studying and they would be very successful and they would make them proud. And these children with so much parental expectations, but without a family backing of culture and knowledge, they would have frank hysterical attacks just before the examination results were coming out. Now that thing has wholly disappeared. You see, in my life, I have seen that thing has wholly disappeared in India. Other type of things come because that type of thing has wholly gone, because that first generation learners have been now replaced by second, third generation learners. So that necessity is not there to treat the same patient in the same way. So like that, in my every small life, so many things have changed in front of me. Then if you consider the panorama of lives that are unfolding, each new personality in each new age cannot have an equal resemblance to a personality of the same kind of thing that one was dealing with, which was 200, 300, 400 years back. You can't. So that is why it is vain. It is a vain waste of time and energy. So you want to resolve the karmic conflicts of the past life, as if, even if they have carryover effects in this life. So you have to do something else. You have to go forwards. And then Sri Aurobindo says, these are, I have put that in quotes. If the memory of the past personalities comes of itself, if some memory of past personalities come, might be without a name or mere outward details, but some clue can come, then it is sometimes important as giving a clue to something in the present development. It can give a clue to something in your present structure. But to know the nature of the personality and is shared in the present constitution of the character is quite enough. The rest is of little use. So even if something comes from the past, it just gives a clue to something. But to explore that clue, going on, expanding on that, that also has little value, because we are geared towards the future. We are geared towards the future. It's shown in those words that we do not belong to the dawns of the past, but to the future noons. We do not belong to the past dawns, but to the noons of the future. So in fact, instead of trying to resolve past karmic conflicts by past life or regressive therapies, Sri Aurobindo recommended a different way to deal with the karmic conflicts. You see, we want to do. I have people who do many types of pujas. I know, why you are doing this puja? No, last life he had actually killed his guru. One of my patients, you see that patient, he's there in this ISKCON. He told me that last life he has killed his guru, and so this life the guru is still there in Kerala. So this life he has come and he has to meet the guru and to offer penance from him. That's why I wanted to send him to the guru, but the guru is now not willing to take him for some other reasons, might be because he has got a little bit of psychosis and all that. But this kind of things always go on, that you do so many kind of things so that you want to resolve what happened 500 years back, so that this life you are very, what do you call, you have a resolution of your problems. So Sri Aurobindo didn't go into that. He is recommending a superconscious way, to deal with the karmic conflicts, a different way. So first, so if you want to deal with the karmas, from Sri Aurobindo's perspective, then there are 5 steps I would outline if you can extrapolate these things from his vast literature. You see that this is something which I'm applying. It is an applied psychology from the wealth of material Sri Aurobindo has given to us, and to make our own journey forwards in every time, every era in a new way. So now there are the 5 important things from the point of psychology. This is from the point of psychology, we'll tell you. The first is that you see that we are always brooding about what has happened in the past. And this brooding, when the brooding goes further and further, then we extend it to the broodings of the past lives, what happened in our past lives. So always we are brooding something. In our life, we also brood. We go on brooding, the same thing going on, and we extend it backwards again to past lives. And this is done by our physical mind. So the physical mind has to be worked upon. And because the physical mind is under the clutch of habitual thought patterns. You see, it is another clutches of habitual thought patterns, this which come repeatedly again and again. And this is why in all traditions of religion, the japa or the what you call JAPA, japa, what you call that in English, that you repeat the sacred name in some form or the other, or you are with the rosary beads, or with writing, or with making what you call in memory, you are using your memory to repeat that name. You see, in everywhere this tradition of japa is there. The japa has been meant to deal with this physical mind. It's not that japa is not bringing you nirvana or a great spiritual realization. Japa is meant that because you are repeating always habitual things, instead of repeating habitual things, you repeat the name of the Lord, which will have a galvanizing effect on your being. And then secondly, that you have to, if you have to be working on your will, and not for exaggerating your individual willpower, not that, then you will not succeed. But you see, people concentrate between their eyebrows. And many people think that by concentrating between the eyebrows and the chakra between the eyebrows, that I will have an enormous willpower. But for us, that has little value, unless there, when you concentrate between the eyebrows, you link your willpower with the universal willpower. So it is the universal willpower which has to work through you. If your alienation is that alignment is that I will only work with my willpower, then we will surely fail, and you will surely be in the habitual clutches of the what you call the karma which goes on in the lower nature. It's like that. But you have to link your willpower with the universal willpower. Then only the universal will lift you out from the what you call the tangle in which you are involved, the tangle of karma in which you are involved. So you have to have the universal willpower to act on you. But it is not enough. This will only be consolidated, as Radha started today's introduction by talking about the psychic being, that you have to replace the ego by the 4-dimensional soul principle of psychic being, which is a projection of the undying self of the Jivatma, which is not the same as the Jivatma, though it is the same, but it's still a projection of the Jivatma. So it is same, but it is also different. And this psychic being, we'll come to that, the importance of the psychic being when we talk about in rebirth. But then the alignment of the individual will with the divine will can only be consolidated if the ego is replaced by the psychic being. And then an identification, the fourth is an identification with the undying self of Jivatma, can lift the yoke imposed by birth in time. There is a verse from Savitri, from the book 1, 2nd Canto, and free one from the soul's compound debt accumulated to numberless lives. The soul's compound debt accumulated through numberless lives. So only when you are identified with the Jivatma, the yoke imposed by birth in time will be lifted. But what does that mean? That is a rider in it. You see, that is a rider in this sentence. What is the rider? Is the Jivan Mukta bound by past deeds? The Jivan Mukta is one who has become liberated. One who has become liberated from where? from the nature, one who has become liberated from the nature, one soul, one in his soul consciousness, one has become what you call totally liberated from everything in the lower nature. So that is the Jivan Mukta. So the Jivan Mukta is then free from all karmas. So according to what Sri Aurobindo has said in the Savitri, that when you identify with the Jivatma, you are free from the yoke, or the yoke imposed by birth in time is lifted. So that means the Jivatma is ensuring that the person who has become liberated, the Jivan Mukta, is free from everything, from what has happened in the past. Even in some past life, he was a very tremendously difficult person. Is it like that? This is also interesting, which is where somewhere in his deliberations in the Isha Upanishad, he talks about that in a conversation between a teacher and a student, the teacher is explaining, and Sri Aurobindo has given that whole chapter in the form of a conversation between a teacher and a student, but he's explaining that the mukti prevents one's liberation from nature, prevents one's future deeds from creating bondage. But what about the past deeds which already created bondage? So the mukti is ensuring that in future, mukti from the lower nature is ensuring that in future you are, because you are now aligned with the jivatma, with the soul, so you are free, you will be free. Things will not create bondage from now on. But the past, what happened? The past deeds which have already created bondage so long, Prakriti or nature attached to the jivatma must be allowed to work out its effects. Otherwise, Sri Aurobindo explains the chain of causation is snapped and the whole economy of nature is
Seems he's got internet issues, so hopefully he'll be back on here momentarily. Can you maybe text him, Vladimir, and just let him know he may be unaware that and just a comment here while we're paused. Again, if you have any questions for Dr. Basu, please be sure to put it in the Q&A box. And I see he has left, so he'll be coming back in here shortly. Vladimir, is there any comments that you would like to make in terms of the Upanishads? I know he referenced you. Okay, he's on the phone with Dr. Basu.
He's coming back, so I just
okay.
found out about
Okay, good. I didn't know if you wanted to make any comments on the Upanishad verse that he referred to earlier.
All right, yes, I have few notes on this. Wanted to pose this question at the end, that what he was speaking about, that the Balaji has his eyes covered, and that was quite interesting because in the Veda, I was always wondering about this. In the Rig Veda, the gods never see man, they always only hear man. So there is the connection of the gods and man are through the listening, through hearing, so not through seeing. And I never could really understand this, but most probably this has this deeper significance of being not judgmental about their deeds, good or bad. And yeah. So we wait for him and see what he would.
Vladimir,
yes.
Vladimir, can you answer some of the questions on question and answer section?
Sure, I will try at least. From the point of view of the existence awareness, Satchitananda, primordial consciousness, which is not a thing, there isn't any karma but jiva, which is causal plus subtle plus physical, chooses experiences for its own realization. There, how the evolution of karmic propensities do take place. But basically, he answered this beautifully in the last slide, saying that the karmic consequence must be kept. Oh, he is here, so he will answer these questions at the end. They have to endure in the past because their nature is building on them the evolution of the future. So it cannot be totally removed. Yeah, you are here. We can hear you, Sumitra. Can you hear us?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Just
great.
a minute. Screen sharing to হচ্ছে না?
It is being shared. You can start your PowerPoint.
Oh, PowerPoint, no?
Yeah, it's just covered with launching meeting, so you have to remove this screen, and it will come to your PowerPoint behind, I guess.
Huh?
Maybe if you get out of screen share and start over also, I'm not sure. But I'll just mention too, while Sumitra is getting signed in here, I just wanted to mention that next Wednesday we do have a global collective darshan, Victory Day, Siddhi Day, that we... Let me see, maybe I'll just mute him a second.
This show small active speaker video.
If he comes back on, Vladimir, with that, you'll just have to unmute him. But I just wanted to finish. We will be sending out an email to everybody regarding this Global City Day for next Wednesday, and it'll be at 9 a.m. Eastern Time and 7:30 p.m. In India. And we hope you all can join us. We have Dr. Ravi speaking, Dr. Alok Pandey, and we also have Amita Mira, along with about 12 or 14 centers from around the world. So you'll all be receiving an email shortly after this presentation by Dr. Basu. So he's coming back on. I'm just going to go ahead and here unmute him.
Sumitra, can you unmute yourself? You're muted now. Yeah.
Okay.
And switch on the video that we could see your face.
Switch on the
video on. Just click on this stop video icon.
start video.
Yeah, now we can see.
So I've come back to this point. So that's a good example that the past deeds also create bondage. No? It's karma that this happened to me. So this is a very important thing that you see that which Shabindu says we have to reflect on why it appears that it is contradictory, that he is saying on one hand that if you identify with the Jivatma, you will be lifted from the yoke imposed by birth in time. But the other way, he's also saying that that doesn't guarantee that the past what has happened, that will not be there, because they have left their imprints in the cosmic consciousness. They can't be just You see, past deeds that have happened already, they have their imprints in the cosmic consciousness, and you cannot erase them by a rubber. But going forwards, you can get over the fetters of karma. That is important. That going forwards, you can get over that. Going forward, that you can get over the fetters of karma. When you go forward, you can get over the fetters of karma. That is important. That when you go forward, you can get over the fetters of karma. It doesn't mean that all the past deeds will be whitewashed, because everything is there in the cosmic consciousness, what has happened in the past, and you cannot erase them with a rubber. And then the final, full and creative freedom from the past. You see, this is Sri Aurobindo's addition. It comes with the transformation of life. The NY says transformation of life. It is not enough that we are free from the past karmas by never being born again. This is important. It is not enough that we are free from the past karmas by never being born again. It is more important to conceive of a higher life which is free of karmic effects, and where there will be no recurrence of the past karmas. That is more important in Sri Aurobindo's perspective. There is a higher life which is free from the usual karmas that were affecting you, and it is a scheme of integral transformation, which is very interesting, because it will lead to the supreme spiritual rebirth and free us from all possibilities of bondage of nature's common activity. So that is something which Sri Aurobindo gives, that when you rise up, that when he has what he has told, what he has explained about the transformation of life, in the supramental transformation, in a transformed life, then the karma will be not there in their previous mode, in their previous denouement. It will not be there. So with that, we come to the rebirth, the three basic principles of rebirth, which we are very important and which you have to remember. That Sri Aurobindo explains that you cannot, and you must not, and you should not consider rebirth in terms of individual phenomena. Is that X is born as Y? It's not like that. It's not so simple like that. It's very complicated. He has emphasized that the old idea of rebirth aids by an excessive individualism. So you are always focusing on as an individual, as if the individual X is going to be reborn as Y, and last birth it was as Z. It's not like that. One enters into birth not in a separate being, but in the life of the whole, and therefore inherits the life of the whole. So Sri Aurobindo gives more importance to the future. So you have to see rebirth as a cosmic phenomenon, not as an individual phenomenon. This is number one basic point one has to remember, that rebirth has to be seen not as an individual phenomenon, but as a cosmic phenomenon. And then Sri Aurobindo explains the subconscious, which for the Freud is the unconscious. What Sri Aurobindo calls the subconscious is unconscious for the Freud. And the subconscious is formed for one life, and it is not carried by the soul from one life to another. The subconscious of the Freudian unconscious is constructed only for one life, for one single life, and it is not carried by the soul from one life to another. The memory of past lives is not something that is Sri Aurobindo's words. Memory of past lives is not something that is active anywhere in the being. If memory is meant by the memory of details, usually it is the essence of past life that is activized in the being, not any particular memory. It is the essence of past life that can be activated in your being. And rebirth doesn't mean a brute succession of bodies, that one body will be born as another body, not like that. It implies a secret soul continuity. It implies a continuity at the level of the soul. There is the soul personality. You see, the memory traces of the deepest imprints in lifetime acts as templates for future lives. I will explain this, that in each new life doesn't start from a zero. Each new life doesn't start from a zero. All the deepest experiences of your life, the deepest experiences, mind you, the deepest experiences of your life, which are very rare, they will remain as memory traces in the cosmic consciousness to act as templates for future lives. So the deepest memories of your life, of your experiences, the deepest memories will remain as memory transcripts in the cosmic consciousness for future lives. And why it is important? Because if this cosmic consciousness didn't contain these memory imprints, then we would have started from a zero. But we don't start from a zero. We are in continuity with the cosmic consciousness. We manifest a global unity. We have shared universal values. Otherwise, individual life would be aberrant and isolated freak. But we are not isolated freaks. We are someone who is connected with the whole. And to be connected to the whole, you have to be connected with the cosmic consciousness. And to be connected with the cosmic consciousness, you have to go over time, not only this time, but not only linear time, but time that has been unfolding for eras and eras. And in there, the memory transcripts are always there, which are always remaining there in the cosmic consciousness. What memory transcripts? The deepest experiences of myself are stored there. You see that in often when I read Savitri, the first page of Savitri, it appears to me that when creation is starting again, after a period of destruction of pralaya, there is Srishti and pralaya always happening in the Indian tradition. When the creation is happening and the creation is dissolved, there is a dissolution, and then again there is a new creation is happening. But all the past creations, they leave their they leave their imprints in the cosmic inconscious, that they leave their imprints. And it is from those memory transcripts of the past eras, of the past cycles of that have happened before of creation, that again a new creation starts. Every time a new creation doesn't start from a zero or from a blank, but the creations that have happened before and before, cycles that have happened before. You see, endless number of cycles come, and the cycles get dissolved, and new cycles come. But each cycle, when it starts with memories that are kept, seed memories that are kept in the inconscious of the cosmic consciousness, which are kept there. And you see, when I read the first chapter of the first page of Savitri, it comes to me very strongly that Vishnu in Ananta Sajja, it appears to me that being that is described like the Vishnu in Ananta Sajja, which is holding in the cosmic inconscious, where everything that has been there in the past, and we don't know, something of us that we are now dealing with here has actually come from past cycles. We don't know that, but surely something has come from the past cycles. You see, you are seeing rebirth from a very different perspective. Rebirth not only from one life to another life, but rebirth from one cycle to another cycle. You see, in Sri Aurobindo's vision, you have to consider rebirth in a great cosmic perspective, not only from one life to this life, but from one cycle which had got dissolved in pralaya, and the next cycle that will come again. You see, there are certain things that can be carried over in that. So now we come back, of course, to mundane level, to our level. Psychic memories are unforgettable moments of life when the consciousness is intense, luminous, strong, active, powerful, sometimes turning points in life. Mother's words that have changed the direction of one's life. Now you ask every one of you, that in the last 30 years, can you tell me how many such unforgettable moments which were luminous and strong you experienced? I bet you will not be able to tell 5 or 6, very rarely 10. It doesn't, you see, very rarely we have this kind of memories that are the most deep, the deepest memories, which carry something of divine consciousness, some element of what you call creativity, or some element of newness, some element that is going to change our lives, something like that. When I first stood in front of the Samadhi, when I first saw the Himalayan peak, the peak of Kanchenjunga, I saw the feelings I had, that very deep feeling I had. How many times do you have this kind of feelings? Very, very rare. These are the feelings which are recorded by the psychic being. And you see, Mother said that you remember a set of circumstances at one moment of life for past lives. You remember only a set of circumstances at one moment of life. One moment, and then that passes into the consciousness along with some associations with all that was around you. Perhaps a word spoken, a phrase heard. But what was most important was the state of the soul in which you are. For that indeed remains very clearly engaged, the state of the soul. You remember that when Mother said that when she remembered that she was Queen Elizabeth I, because that phrase came to her when Queen Elizabeth I was in her terminal state, and she was told by her doctors not to meet her, the people who had come to meet her. She told, no, I will go to meet them. Then she was told she might die, and then she told, death can wait. We can die afterwards. Something like that she told, and that phrase came back to mother in English in a flash. So like that, it will come back in a flash. It comes back like a moment lived, like that. It doesn't come with a whole set of things. Now, the psychic, when it departs from the body, what it carries with it? It carries with it the divine element in that moment that was experienced. You see, all moments are not recorded by the psychic being. Now, this has also very great importance. Now, in psychology, we have seen that if someone who has played football, a footballer, has been sent to watch a football match, and when he comes back, he has been told to describe the whole match. But we have found that a person cannot describe the whole match. He only remembers the key points of the match, and he fills up the rest by his unconscious, by what you call his unconscious memory of football, because he has played football for a long time. So others are excluded. So like that in life, most of our experiences, they go back into the cosmic waste paper basket. They go back into the cosmic waste paper basket. Only those moments which were which had something, which had a space for a divine element, they are kept. And these moments which were always preserved because they're a divine element, they get what you call recorded. They get recorded, they are preserved, and that is what mother says, they are the permanent addition. You see, this kind of moment where the divine element has been present, this kind of moment, every life something new happens. In every life, you have to extract the divine element in all sorts of experiences that is happening in your life. And that extraction of that divine element from all sorts of your experiences in your life is the permanent addition that helps in the growth towards the divine. So that every birth is a step forward towards the divine. Every birth is a step forwards to the divine. Every birth you have to take something new. Every birth you have to take something new. It cannot be a replication of the past. It cannot be a repetition of the past. It has to be something new, new and new. Always it has to be something new. And what is that newness? That you have gathered something which was the divine element of all the experiences, that you extracted that, and of course that you have to do consciously. So example, mother said that the divine element in the magnanimity of the warrior. You see, the warrior also has a divine element in the magnanimity, and expressed in his loyalty and courage, the divine element behind the harmonious mentality and generous vitality of the poet. All these things like that, these kind of things are preserved. And these are carried from life to life and exist as memory transcripts. You see, these experiences which are preserved in the psychic being are existing as memory transcripts in the cosmic consciousness, and they influence future lives in many, many ways. Thus, a very deep musical transcript will be transmitted to one or more receptive individual scattered in space and time. So that, like many receptive musicians could imbibe Beethoven's music. So you see, something is there, something is kept, a memory transcript is kept, and the memory transcript can act in many ways. Afterwards, it can influence one individual. It can influence many individuals. For example, if there is something very creative in it, like Beethoven's music, it can influence many individuals who are receptive to Beethoven's music. Or a more composite transcript may be transferred at birth to an individual. That happens. That someone is being born, a psychic being, which has a very composite transcript of many things that together, they can be, in total, they can be transferred, not one single experience like that of music, but a more composite thing that can be transferred during birth from the psychic world. It can be transferred to the subject who is being born. Thus, rebirth in Aurobindo terms is a cosmic phenomenon and involves transmission of highly significant seed memories stored in the psychic being, which may be transferred to one or more individuals. It does not mean that a certain X is necessarily born as a certain Y. It's not like that Tom is born as Harry in the next life. Always it is not like that. And between lives, the psychic being assimilates all experiences. The psychic being assimilates all experiences between lives. You see, between lives, it is assimilating with all experiences, so that it goes into a kind of rest. And that, mind you, mother says that you should not confuse it with nirvana. It's not nirvana. It is assimilating all experiences. And when that assimilation is finished, it comes down in a new body, bringing with it the environment and the kind of body and the kind of life in which it will live to complete its experience. concerning one point or another. In some very advanced cases, the mother describes the psychic can, before leaving the body, decide what kind of life it will have in its next incarnation. So that also mother describes that in very advanced cases, when you have worked on your psychic being, then the psychic can, before leaving the body, can decide what kind of life it will have in the next incarnation. And as we say that the outer personality is formed at every birth. You see, our outer personality is a construction made at every birth by the soul and the lower nature. So the soul acts with the lower nature to form a outer personality. It is constructed in consonance with the social, cultural milieu of that particular era, and is deconstructed along with the individual subconscious after every lifespan. So every personality is constructed according to the milieu, the demands of the time of that time spirit, and then it is deconstructed also with the subconscious. This is natural, as the characteristics required of a certain role would be different at different eras of history. This means that past life theories, which traces problems in one life to the surface personality of a past life, do not have value here. You see, you are tracing problems of surface personality of this life to the surface personality of some other life. It doesn't have value in Sri Aurobindo's paradigm. So, of course, there are certain spectacular encounters that take place, but Sri Aurobindo said that these are mostly with vital beings or formations in the cosmic consciousness. We'll come to that. That's different. That's not past life. So that means it is wrong to say that A is reborn as B. You can say he is a personality organically distinct from B and cannot be said to have reincarnated as B. So you could only say rightly, if you say that is a line of consciousness. There are several lines of consciousness. One particular line of consciousness is using A and B at different points in time as the instruments of his manifestation. So there is a line of consciousness, and that line of consciousness is manifesting in this era, one person, and in another era it will manifest through another person. So a certain line of consciousness that explores music originating at a superconscious plane might support different musicians, say X, Y, and Z at different eras in history, but does not mean that X is reborn as Y or Z. Rather, X, Y, and Z have the capacity of manifesting a certain higher order music through inspiration from the superconscious. But each will compose in accordance with the demands of the time spirit, and each will have his uniqueness. Each composer will be unique by oneself. So this is an interesting thing, and there are of course exceptional cases, and a very, very exceptional case can happen when a psychic being who is progressively perfecting itself to successive births can draw within itself higher evolutionary beings from the higher non-evolutionary or typal worlds. Time doesn't permit me to expand on this issue because we have already talked in many sessions about the typal worlds, or the worlds where there are the worlds of the gods, and from there the beings can be drawn. This is the overmind plane. Then these higher beings who are divine beings, they can be drawn into the psychic being, and when this fusion occurs, the psychic being is magnified and it shares in the nature of the being incarnated in it. So it can act in a godly way. If it has incarnated a certain god, it has incarnated a certain power of Mahasaraswati, then it can Saraswati, it can act with the Saraswati consciousness, and then it has the power to produce emanations. That is, these beings have the power to produce emanations. They project out of themselves independent emanations. You see, they are not duplications. Emanations are not duplications that goes into others to incarnate itself. So there can be 2, 3, 4, or 5 emanations. You see, ordinary rebirth is not the same as the rebirth of the divine or the avatar. So the mother's reincarnation we cannot confuse with this kind of ordinary, even the psychic being who is highly developed, invoking or drawing in an evolutionary being. Still, that we cannot equate with the mother's reincarnation. But still, to give you a point that one can be present in many emanations at the same time, as mother has revealed that at a certain points in time, she was present in 3 or 4 emanations. For example, simultaneously, she was present as a Joan of Arc, she was present in the consciousness of Queen Elizabeth I, and she was present in the consciousness of Queen Margaret of France. So like that, it can happen. Now we are talking about the psychic being. What happens to the other parts of the being? What happens to the other parts of the being? With the dissolution of the physical form, all elements are dispersed. Exceptions occur. For example, in the case of strong emotional attachment children have for parents, its mother has described, Of course, it is mother with her occult knowledge. She could describe this, that a part of the departed parental consciousness can get assimilated into their children, because the bonds, emotional bonds with the children and the parents are very strong. Now, if you have a mind which is a very developed mind, you have created many things with your mind. What happens to that? When you die, then these mental creations will, or mental formations will stay in the cosmic consciousness. Might be they will stay in the libraries, in the books, in your wisdom, what do you call, in your source of wisdom, and they can influence receptive minds in future generations. Likewise, if you have a great vital, strong vital, a vital that is linked to the psychic being, like that also when I talked about the mental formations, it was those strong mental formations that were linked to the psychic being, then though they will remain in the cosmic consciousness, they can remain and they can influence people. So like that, the strong vitality, if it is linked with the psychic, their transcripts can inspire future generations. Still today, our military people, they take the name of Shivaji, or we invoke the name of Napoleon, we invoke the name of Alexander when we go to war. Why? Because their vitality was so much that even in the cosmic consciousness, their vitality, which is there as a transcript, is able to arouse us, to stimulate us. But then there are other things also. There are vital residues. All subtle elements, remember, do not represent soul elements. All subtle elements which you see in the cosmic consciousness by inner eye, by your experience, they are not soul elements. There can be disembodied vital fragments. They can persist in cosmic ignorance with maleficent effects. For example, this child was brought to me, a 3-year-old child, autistic child, profoundly retarded, couldn't utter anything except saying ah, 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 like that was his sound. But when he was, he cannot communicate. But when he was given a number of alphabets in a board, he could immediately, like he fit in a jigsaw puzzle of alphabetical letters, he could arrange it. He was always arranging the words murder, M-U-R-D-E-R. God knows how he did it. And then he was again doing it Europe, as if he was in a past life, he was murdered and he was in Europe in past life. It's happened in my chamber, in my clinic space. I had took a video presentation of that, and I have find it out again so that it can be put in record. It is very interesting. Now, what was that? What was it? It was the memory traces carried by the psychic being. That child who is autistic cannot tell anything, but can, if you put alphabets, this cardboard cutouts of alphabets, he can arrange it in the words murder, he can arrange the word Europe. So it must be a strong vital memory carried by disembodied vital elements. You see, it is vital memory carried by disembodied vital elements, or a part of a vital consciousness which was using him as a medium. Very difficult for us to say, but we can see that it's not the psychic, but something which is a vital residue that is doing that whole phenomenon. Now, the mother described small vital entities which are formed by the decomposition of desires. Last, when power, sex, and money, we told about this Maurice Mager's experience when she told mother that he was always seeing that there were people who were very sexually active, and around them, like a swarm of bees around the beehive, he was seeing small entities who are sucking out all the energy in each sexual act. And they were actually the people with great sexual activity, they were carrying this kind of entities. And mother has described that not only the sexual, they are activating your sexual energies, they are doing other things also, because these vital fragments they can come from many levels of the vital. Vital has many levels. The sexual part is one part of the vital, but there are desires which are higher than the sexual, but they can also get dissipated. They can also get formed into small vital entities, and they are responsible for this automatic writing, spirit communication. They play with human beings. And mother said that because they're in the domain from where it is easy to read human thought, they tell you very well what you have in your head. And then mother was asked about spectacular past life events narrated by children and reported in newspapers. You have these beautiful stories which children say that we were in past life like this, like that, in a castle, like I was a king. And but this is different from the specific memory imprints carried by the psychic being, because the mother said that the past life memories always come in flashes. They come in flashes, like not like a composite whole thing. If it is a composite whole story, then it is an imagination. It is not true. But still, when children talk about such thing or people report about such things, then certain of these reports, they have some truth in it. And what is the truth? The mother had answered, the memories mentioned in the newspapers are the memories of the vital being, when exceptionally it has come out of a body in order to enter another. A vital being has come out of a body in order to enter another. That happens though not frequently. The memories I am referring to are those of the psychic being, and one is conscious of them only when one is in conscious relationship with one psychic being. So the psychic memories, which is very important, and when one is in conscious relationship with the psychic being, then only you can remember that. So this brings out the very important thing. What is a ghost? What is a ghost? Now, as Sri Aurobindo explained, in the early Greek and some other traditions about afterlife, what the descriptions show that what was mistaken for the soul was a subconscious formation, a sub-physical impression mold or shadow form of the being, or is a ghost of the personality. So what is this ghost? It can be three things. Sometimes a vital formation reproducing the man's characteristics, his surface-like mannerisms. Sometimes a subtle physical prolongation of the surface form of the mind shell. It happens very frequently after people, after death, during bereavement, when people feel that subtle physical prolongation, one can feel for a certain amount of period, one can feel. Or at best, it is the sheath of the life personality, which still remains in the front for some time after departure from the body. Now, many things are there. Some months back, I was called by someone who, 18-year-old girl, who was continuously staying in a remote area of Bengal, near a great forest. She was continuously seeing a very beautiful lady at middle of the night was calling her to come down, because she was in the first floor and that lady was calling her, and she got very afraid. Now this girl didn't have any psychiatric problem. She was hale and hearty. Suddenly she opened the window at night because it was hot to let the air, and then after some time she saw this lady calling her, and she got very afraid. Then she and this happened for 2 to 3 days consecutively, and she was feeling an impulse to go down. But then somehow I told her, I was with her for 2-3 nights. I was also awake with her so that she doesn't go down, because I had a feeling that some catastrophe would have happened if she had gone down. But anyway, I told her to invoke the divine. I sent her to one of the Sri Aurobindo centers very close by, where there was a relics of Sri Aurobindo, to go and pray there. And ultimately it subsided. The whole thing subsided. So something, you see that many strange things happen in life which you don't know, which you don't understand. But you see, I think that these are the points. If you can go over them and think about them, that this kind of things frequently happens. That vital formations can come, a subtle physical prolongation of the surface form of the mind shell can come. People many times I have seen who have become very seriously affected. They had been visualizing a white form, and in occult knowledge it is known that when you see something in the subtle world in a white form, it might indicate something which is not right at all, which is not pure imagination. It is most probably indicating that you are seeing something of what Sri Aurobindo describes in these three, either a vital formation or a subtle physical prolongation or a sheath of a life personality. We don't have that clarity of the mother's vision to understand which is what. But these are the three categories where we can put all these things together. Now, rebirth in consciousness is, Sri Aurobindo used the word rebirth. He preferred the word rebirth over the more familiar terms of transmigration, metempsychosis, and reincarnation. So, Sri Aurobindo's concept of the psychic being carries impressionistic memory traces beyond the lifespan, heralding a trajectory of soul evolution, which is not corresponding to the usual notions of transmigration and reincarnation. You see, the Sri Aurobindo's concept of the psychic being carrying the impressionistic memory traces, memory transcripts of the lifetime, the most essential seed memories that it is carrying. And so it is a trajectory of soul evolution, and it is not corresponding with the usual motions of transmigration and reincarnation. It surpasses the reward punishment paradigms of karma. Karma always views things as reward and punishment, but Sri Aurobindo doesn't view like that. that you have to go on forward and forward and forward, so that you rise above all types of things which disturb you in the as karmas. You have to rise above that. So that is important. And it also does not conform to the Buddhist theory, where indefinite prolongation by reincarnation is actually considered to be a burden, because the goal is not to be born again, not to be born again. So when I was very small and there was no television in India, and the very old people used to sit, there's no work, no television, everybody has gone to work, and the people were sitting there lonely, silent. And many times he used to tell me, next life now I don't want to be born again, because either the Buddhist theory or the Shankaracharya's theory also, that is better not to be born again. The truth, better that we go to the great void. But you see, because there was no, the old elderly people of that generation do not say these things nowadays, because television is there and they see television serials, so they don't say like that. So that thing has changed. Science has changed that mental attitude. But what I'm saying is that only in Sri Aurobindo's paradigm, this reincarnation is not a burden. Rebirth is not a burden. It is giving you a scope to grow in consciousness, spiraling through many lifetimes. It is a scope given to you to grow in consciousness, a growth that will spiral many lifetimes. So it is not a burden at all. That's why Sri Aurobindo qualified the term rebirth as evolutionary rebirth. Evolutionary rebirth. Very important, very interesting thing. Because if you see the other theories of rebirth, you can't say that they will be evolutionary rebirths. It is a different category altogether. The evolutionary journey, starting from the inconscience of matter, traversing plant life and animal life to human being, has signified a progressive unfolding of the powers of the spirit, hidden and willed in the subtleties and vastness of nature. So, way of the spirit in its power is justified no longer as a termless futility. See, the way of the spirit in its power is justified no longer as a termless futility, but the sum of works of a large spiritual will and wisdom. So the human soul and the cosmic soul, they are looking at each other. There is a space in between the human soul and the cosmic soul. And between that space, an evolutionary rebirth is occurring. You have to view that there is a cosmic soul and there is the individual soul at one point. And between them, there is a big space. And in that space, and trajectory of evolution is taking place. And evolutionary rebirth is spiraling through many lives, so reaching from the individual soul to the cosmic soul. So that means that the human soul and the cosmic soul, when they look at each other, they look at each other with a noble and divine meaning. So this is why Sri Aurobindo is so important, so different from others. But then, before finishing, the last thing that I will tell, the story doesn't end here. The story doesn't end here. There is something else. We can also do something else. If we are following Mother and Sri Aurobindo, we can also do something else. We can add something else to whatever is going on. And what is that? I would say this is a unique aspiration for the new creation. Now, many people tell that next life I want to be a great sadhu, or I want to be a great devotee of the Mother. From day one, I should be devoted to the Mother. Very good. These are very good. Now, that is also a different thing that can be done. Offer our consciousness to the Mother, because the Mother is wanting to make a new creation. To make a new creation, she is wanting to make new bodies. She is wanting to make new species. So, what is the use of my getting birth again like this? Let us participate in the Mother's work of creating something new, a new species. Let us participate in that work. So if we are talking about rebirth, let us be reborn in that consciousness where Mother will use raw material from us. You know, she needs raw material to prepare new bodies. She cannot do it also from a vacuum. She needs raw material. And how she can have raw material and how we can contribute to the raw material from where she will make new bodies. You see, one is aspire to increase the psychic memories. They meditate to experience unique moments not linked to the subconscious. As I told, the psychic being only remembers the most important, the most beautiful, the most divine element in all our experiences. So every day when we are sitting for meditation, we can say that at least 24 hours, one moment, one beautiful moment, let me have one beautiful moment. Then we are adding that to the pattern of psychic memories. So these moments will remain as viable transcripts. If you want to be reborn, if you want not to die, because you see other things will go away in the cosmic waste paper basket. So if you want to be reborn, you have to increase the uh, uh, reservoir of your psychic memories. You have to increase that. And for that, you have to invoke that every day. And then second thing, you have to work on the body consciousness. When we started today, Vladimir talked about the body. I think he was wanting to say that the next year, you would want to have a special focus on the body. Of course, that is true, because work on the body consciousness to build a subtle body, a subtle physical elements that outlast lifespan. So that is a sadhana. That is a sadhana that we have to do. We have to work on our body consciousness. And the more we work on our body consciousness, we will be contributing to our subtle body. And the subtle body will remain in the cosmic consciousness. It will not dissolve. Even if our outer body will die, but the subtle body will remain. So A and B, these psychic memories and this subtle body, the body consciousness, they will provide the raw material in the cosmic consciousness for the new creation, which the mother has to use. And is there any alternative to physical dissolution of form? But then the next question that comes, is there any alternative to physical dissolution of forms? Now the body consciousness can be worked upon. You see, this is very interesting in the agenda she describes. This is something, of course, which will go above our heads just now. But just I will give you a point to consider that if you work on your body consciousness, then what happens when there can be a conscious way of realigning the cells of the body, of course, in the subtle body. So which will serve the truth can persist even while everything is broken up. So when we die, our physical consciousness is broken up and given to the cosmic waste paper basket. Instead of that, if you develop a subtle body, and that the alignment of the subtle body, that alignment can be done in such a way to serve the truth, that will persist. So that will not go in the cosmic waste paper basket. It will go forward. It can be broken up in a forward movement. You see, the body is broken up. Instead of breaking up so that it ends in the cosmic waste paper basket, it is breaking up so going to go forward, to go back to forward. Instead of sinking back to death, it can be rebuilt in a constant aspiration to follow the progressive movement of the divine truth. So instead of breaking up, it is going forward for a new creation. You see, for so long we have thought that at death we are dealing with the vital, we are dealing with the psychic, we are dealing with the mind, but not with the body, because the body has gone to dust, the body has gone to the flames, has gone to the earth. But no, something can be done to the body. That clue has been given by the mother, and that is something new. That this challenge has been given to us. It is for us to take up the challenge. You see, not a vain repetition of the past, but expanding upon the wisdom which the mother and Sri Aurobindo has given us. Not tied up with the things, but taking their seed ideas and moving forward. And moving forward, his mother herself has given that clue that instead of breaking back, you can break forwards also. Such a beautiful thing. You just think over it. But no, it will go over your heads. Even if it goes over your head, just try to remember that if we remain silent and we concentrate on our body, we concentrate on our body consciousness, we concentrate on our subtle body, and we develop a sadhana of our own body. This should be unique for every individual, because every individual has a unique body. As you have a unique emotion, as you have a unique mind. So I trained in psychiatry, Vladimir trained in Sanskrit. Everybody trains in different way, different aspects of the consciousness. So everybody's body also is different. So it's not the same thing. Everybody has to work on the body in a spirit of a new sadhana. And then to end, this is the last slide, the reincarnations of the mother and Sri Aurobindo should not be confused with ordinary rebirth. Reincarnations of the mother and Sri Aurobindo should not be confused with ordinary rebirth. In ordinary rebirth, the soul has lost its link with divinity and has to climb back consciously to the source. That is avatars. In the case of avatars, in the case of mother and Sri Aurobindo, in the case of avatars like them, others, the soul is in full possession of divinity. They are not the same, they are different phenomena. So not going to expand on that, but just trying to make you remember that these are different things which we should keep in mind. Thank you. Unfortunately, my karma, because of that, we had this time lost, but I don't know how we can make up for this time now with such a short period we have now for questions and answers. Over to Vladimir.
Thank you.
With
Thank
all
you so much.
apologies.
No, no apologies. Thank you so much for this very coherent and clear presentation of all the levels. And gradually you led us to this deeper understanding of rebirth and karma in integral yoga, which is very complex, very difficult to explain. And I think you succeeded. It's amazing that the whole vision comes up with reference to the cosmic consciousness, to the nature, to the work of nature, the soul, and the imprints, and also the levels of the species, how species are born. Mother also describes in a very interesting way that they exhaust their capacity in a particular formation, and so the soul which is there wants another formation, and nature offers it to in another form of species, and so on. And this is how evolution takes place, and bodies are built as a foundation for the future. There are several questions here. I would like to read them to you, and maybe you could answer them. From the point of view of existence awareness, Satchitananda, primordial consciousness, which is not a thing, there isn't any karma but the jiva, which is causal plus subtle plus physical, chooses experience for its own realization. There, how the evolution of karmic propensities do take place. I think you answered this, but yeah, please.
The psychic being has to evolve to the extent where it can do this work. It is not for the ordinary case. It is not an ordinary case, but the psychic being has to evolve to a great extent when it can actually come to this place which you are now describing. So it's not for everybody. One has to actually reach that place.
There is another question. Is mukti the same as a great void?
Mukti, one gets liberated from lower nature to go to the great void. Whatever way you call it, the nomenclature is something. You can call it void, you can call it Brahma, you can call it something. But it is, Anirbanji also used to call it the great void. But in Jivan Mukti was also that not only you have experienced the void, but then after experiencing the void, you are coming down to help in the work of the terrestrial consciousness in a perfectly detached manner.
Thank you.
Our question was that once you have become a Jivan Mukti is all right, but once are you free from the past deeds that once you had gone through? Does that give you a license that whatever you have done in the past has been pardoned? That was what I was referring to when Shobhi said that the past thing, that the past deeds which had already caused karma before you went in for your liberation, they have to complete their cycle. Otherwise, the economy or the balance in nature will not be there.
I think the next question is also answering this.
Maybe for that question, Dr. Basu, we're just getting like the upper part of your face there. If you could just turn your camera down a little bit so we can see. Perfect. Thank you so much.
There is this similar question. Does all past life karmas get exhausted in current life, or only a subset of them? Yeah, I think you spoke about it.
We spoke about it.
Yeah. The question was, the karma was only for jiva, the evolution of subtle and physical, but once realization dawns in that one is awareness, existence, but uses the subtle physical for expression, then there is no karma? It's a question.
As long as one has to act in the lower nature, that is the usual karma. You see, even if one has succeeded in realizing what Joy is saying, but still if one is there in the sphere of the lower nature, then one is subject to karma. You have to rise above the higher nature, to the higher nature. Then you can say that something different can happen.
There is another question. Are animals subject to rebirth? And can humans be reborn as animals?
To the second part of this question, the Shivendra has answered that once human stage has been reached, they don't go back to be animals. It is always, the psychic being is always forward moving so that it doesn't go back. This is Shivendra has answered this question specifically. Animals subject to rebirth is a very difficult question. Only for exceptional animals, because in animals the soul is deeply is there, but it is very deep inside, it is embedded, it is not conscious, it is not in conscious contact with the other parts of the system. So it is very difficult to say. But still, there are possibilities can be there. In fact, even in Pondicherry, one of my friends, he had was trying to have a very, very conscious and very lively and apparently very conscious dog to be reborn as a human being. And he claims that he was successful. I don't know, of course, the veracity of his claim, but he was trying that for many, many years. He was working on that. So sometimes it happens, it can happen. But then, of course, he was working with the dog with us for the 16,000 years. Dogs are with us, and they imbibe a certain amount of human consciousness by continuously living with us.
Right.
But for other animals like that, it is difficult to say.
Yeah, I think the mother also mentions this, that she had a cat who became so conscious close to the mother. Being close to the mother, her psychic being, cat's psychic being, was developed, was stronger, and she says, I'm sure that in the next life it can be reborn as a human being. This is quite interesting because it kind of confirms what you are saying. So this possibility of traveling from species to species. So there is no such thing as permanent soul identity that lives through different lifetimes. Is it so? Each soul is made up
Miss,
of
what
components.
I said, that soul has to be understood in a way that it is not something concrete like as I see in this life, I have a mind which is a mathematical mind doing mathematics, only knows mathematics and nothing but mathematics, like mind like that. And after I die, that mind, everything is dissolved, everything is forgotten. Like that, you have a soul like that, which is like that, which is a complete soul, like a completely as we understand the human personality in his outward aspect, like that a soul is difficult to conceive. Soul is something which you have to see both in individual and cosmic terms. Soul is not only in individual term, a soul is simultaneously a cosmic entity. For example, if I tell you this answer to this question to Paramjit, that jivatma, is it single or is it plural? Is the Jivatma single, or if the Jivatma is plural? If the Jivatma is single, then you can have a permanent soul identity. But if the Jivatma is plural, then what happens? Because we say that everybody has a different Jivatma. Again, all Jivatmas are the same. Again, but both are true. It is simultaneously a single and plural. Jivatma is you see, like the curtain in the house, the curtain has many folds. So each fold is a different Jivatma, but all the folds are on the same curtain. So they have the same base. So there is a flexibility, and there is always a development, because nothing is static. So anything which is becomes identified as something as a formation, that will become static. Soul is not like that. Soul is very dynamic. So it is always moving, it is always expanding, it is always changing. Yet you have an identity. So very difficult. Your answer to your question is yes and no. So there's something is that yes, because there is an individual that is going to different lives, but that the individual is not the same individual as before. One has expanded, one has gone to the next life with newer entities, with newer psychic experiences. One has gone on enlarging. One has enlarged in such a way that there might not be any similarity between this life and the other life. Please.
By the way, this interesting point is here what you were mentioning, that the soul is both universal or connected to the one consciousness and to the uniqueness of, is very well kind of viewed in the Vedic tradition, yes, where it is seen that the Lord at the beginning wanted to be many, Bahusyam, may I be many. So how could he become many who alone is? So this is that kind of compromise within the soul, which is on the projection is unique, and on the depth it is the one Lord, which is connecting all the souls. Yeah. So there is one more question. Could be misunderstood the new creation of our new body, our new human body, as cyborg of the transhumanism, as elites are going forward with, this elites are
So
trying
this
to
is
build.
in the way cyborg is used today. The word cyborg is used today, and of course, Siegfried qualifies it very intellectually as cyborgs of transhumanism. He is not talking of the usual cyborgs which we say, a person with an artificial limb who is living or something like that. He's not talking about that. He's talking about the cyborg of transhumanism. You can view it. This is a way in which you are viewing, but the new creation is actually going to be based on a different template. See, the old creation was based on the inconscious. The old creation, we started from wherever evolution started. The evolution started from the inconscious. But because the inconscious contains the opposite of everything which is there in the superconscious. So love has become hatred, knowledge has become ignorance, light has become darkness, joy has become suffering. And from that matrix, evolution is starting. So from the start of a superficial personality, which comes up from that matrix with a scaffolding. Now, the scaffolding is the ego holding around the scaffolding. So when it comes up, it brings all those things into the manifestation. It brings the not only joy, it brings the suffering, it brings the falsehood along with truth. It brings all the opposite things together because it is starting from the unconscious where all the opposite things have happened. Now, when mother was thinking about how to make a new body, she was wanting to have the new body, which will be totally new in the sense that it will not start from the inconscious. It has to start from some other template, not the inconscious. And actually, it was after many years that she came to her very strongly that it can start as a template using the template of the psychic being, because the psychic being descends directly from the Jivatma and therefore is not connected with the inconscious and therefore doesn't carry the stigma of the inconscious, doesn't carry the negative things of the inconscious. So something, it is totally new, it is totally free, it is totally pure, and it is on that template the new creation will start occurring. So it's not exactly like a cyborg, because in a cyborg you still would have done something new, but still with the old creation would have continued with some modifications. But this is something, an entirely new field which has not been ventured before.
Thank you. This is a very important point. The branch of heaven transplanted to human soil. This was the vision of the mother, how to build this new body. So different template on the psychic being reality. And the last question, our experience we have during meditation or any spiritual experience increase the psychic memory?
Uh-huh. Very good question. Of course, from my very dearest friend, Ketki. Very good question. So this, I will say, um, you see, it can occur, the psychic memory, of course, we have to meditate for that, we have to work for that. But you have to remember that it can occur at, as the mother said, any turning point in life. We have to be also sensitive to watch in what turning point of life, what is occurring. I will give you an example. My father was suffering from Alzheimer's dementia. Now he was a geneticist, but when he was suffering from dementia, then suddenly he said something which he never said when he was not suffering from dementia. Suddenly he said that, oh, Sherman had somatic mutation. But then he forgot in what context he had used that word. But many times he told me, Sherman had somatic mutation of his body. Now, that state of the body of Sherman during December 5th to December 9th, 1950, when Sherman's body was lying in a way where decomposition was not occurring, to describe it in scientifically, that somatic mutation is a very nice way to describe it. But this came from a psychic memory which was very embedded deep inside. You see, then it came to me. You see, that changed my outlook. It changed my outlook to dementia. Then I wrote that article on dementia. That in dementia, the people we are worried that people lose all their memories. Then I tell that what matters if one loses all memories? Usually, most of them will go to the cosmic waste paper basket. Is that psychic memories throughout the lifetime, which might be 5 or 10 in any individual, which are kept, which are preserved, which do not die, which do not wither away, which do not get destroyed by Alzheimer's disease. It is that they will remain in the consciousness. They will go from life to life. Why are you worried? You can lose, you can have a defective heart, you can have a defective kidney. So like that, you think that you have some defect where some thoughts, of course, they are not going to go from life to life. They will be there. You see, I understood the psychic being by examining, by interpreting my father, that how in dementia he can talk about something which he never talked in the when he was well, when he was okay. He never talked about that thing. So in a certain point in at a certain moment in life, an intuitive psychic memory can suddenly spring up. So is that, of course, it is a fully pronged approach. You have to develop your whole personality. It's not only that you meditate only on your soul and psychic being, because the psychic being needs instruments to act. So you have to also simultaneously work on your instruments. And that instrument, it might be your mind, it will be your vital, it will be your body, and it might be that instrument has to be developed through profession also. So as for me, as my profession as a clinician, it also helped me. You see that it is not only meditating deep inside the psychic being, but understanding the implications of the psychic being in human life as a whole. Then when I had this, then my whole attitude to dementia changed. Then whenever dementia patients come to me, I bring their family and also the doctors. I tell them, hope is not lost. Nothing is lost. What is not? What is there? This person has become demented after 70 years. In 70 years, he has got so beautiful memories stored in his soul, and they will always remain there. So what matters? Why you are worried that now he is not remembering some small unnecessary detail which anyway which has no value in the cosmic perspective? So you see that he changed my whole perspective. That then even in a dementing patient, then I teach my counseling students that how you have to acknowledge that the psyche is there and how you have to prepare yourselves to understand that element in human being. So of course, what you say is very right. You need to have your meditation, you need to have your sadhana, but at the same time, you need to develop your instruments also, because they are going to carry out what the inner dictates want.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this session. There are very positive response from many people. Thank you, Dr. Basu. Very enlightening, awesome learning journey. Thank you for such a nice session, and so on and so forth. Thank you from our side. It was a wonderful session and actually enlightening on the most difficult topic of our reincarnation and what happens when we are reborn.
Yes, and I too would just like to step in here and thank you so much, Dr. Basu, not only for today's session, but for the many sessions that where you've come on for our audience and spoken about these important topics throughout this past year. And I just want to mention to everybody that is on today that New Perspectives, our Saturday webinars will resume after the New Year's on January 8th. And so in the meantime, we would just like to wish you all very happy holidays, very safe travels for those that will be traveling. And we just really thank you all for joining us throughout the year through our New Perspectives programs, and look forward to seeing you next year. Thank you all. Namaste.